All right. So our topic today is, I never really narrow it down to one theme, but I wanted to explore the Five Remembrances a little bit from some different angles. So the Five Remembrances in Buddhist teachings are these quotes. I'll read them to you that we repeat to ourselves every day to remind us that life is short and what is the purpose. It helps us to kind of orient our life to our practice of this practice of knowing, not just intellectually, but viscerally, that things come and go, including ourselves. That it's an impermanence practice fundamentally. So the first of the five, and you might have heard these before, some of you might even practice with them. There's cards on the donation table over there. I have a few left that you can take with you. But the first one is that I am of the nature to grow old. I have not gone beyond aging. So I've not overcome aging. I'm of the nature to be ill. I've not gone beyond illness. So far, we haven't figured that one out either. Everyone will get ill. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. So just this real kind of visceral understanding that of impermanence, that I am just like everything and everyone else in this kind of ephemeral world. The fourth one is tricky, probably the trickiest one, that says, all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will change and vanish. So that's one translation. That's kind of the easy translation, actually. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will change and vanish. It means that we're going to lose everything and everyone that we cherish. This is a direct line to clinging. It's just acknowledging the truth of the way things are. And the fifth one is, I am the owner of my actions. I'm the heir to my actions, born of my actions, related to my actions, supported by my actions. Whatever I do, whether good or evil, of those I shall be the heir. I'm wondering if that's the translation that's on the card. On the card, it says, my actions are my only true possessions. I cannot avoid the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. This is kind of my preferred. All that is, number 4, all that is dear to me and everyone I love is also subject to change. There's no way to avoid being separated from them. I should have read from this translation. Yeah, the first 3 are the same. So this is really, this is the whole of the practice in kind of a nutshell in many ways, that because things are so impermanent, and this is supposed to be uplifting, by the way, this is the good news of this practice, that we can't control the nature of things. And when we stop trying, we actually end up in the present moment. So many of our machinations in life are around trying to avoid aging, trying to avoid illness, trying to avoid death. Like, forget about it. Just drop it. There's not a whole lot we can do. And then the realization, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I can just be myself in this moment and accept things the way they are. And that's it's kind of a big sigh of relief. And even the fourth one, where we're going to lose everything, that's, that's the nature of suffering. The cause of suffering is that we don't believe that fundamentally, and we cling to our people and our possessions and the situations that are pleasing to us. And then they end. And if we were to stop expecting that they won't end, then we'd be in the moment with them. And that's the only way we can relate to these things and people anyway. It's with the appreciation for how they are in this moment, and this moment, and this moment. So there's a lot of relief in this. And the fifth one is good news too. This is the karma teaching. It spends a lot of time on actions, like the things I do are the things that will predict the way I live and the way I see the world. But remembering that our actions are sort of like the last link in the chain. Before actions come thoughts, perceptions, feeling tone in the body. Like before we act on something, we've gone through a whole list of stuff that there's Buddhist teachings on as well that we can come back to. So by the time we're putting something into the world, but with our speech or our physical actions, it's the culmination of our conditioning. And that's what we know, that we can change our conditioning. Well, we can't change the past. We can rewire our conditioning to create more skillful actions and speech in this life that lead to more connection and more compassion, more understanding of just what it's like to be human. And that's a relief too. My actions are my only true possessions. They're the ground on which I stand. That means that we're not doomed by our conditioning. That this isn't it. We weren't just, a lot of us were dealt kind of a wild hand in this life. But that doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be. Through examination of the mind, and it's really kind of a radical shift in perception when we understand how the world really works, and that it's not what we were taught, right? And we understand how the world really works. This is called the nature of seeing clearly. Through our own experience, not because of what someone told us or what we read, right? It's not external, it's completely internal, that we can shift the way we see things, ourselves, other people, situations. And if my actions are the ground on which I stand, that's awesome. Unless my actions are kind of shitty, then that's the ground I'm going to stand on. And I'll know I'm doing it because I'll feel it in that moment. So this is really all of the teaching, but that's not the end. There's always the next moment to make a different choice. And so we're really learning through sitting still and coming back to our breath and noticing sounds and noticing coming and going. This is, in our meditation practice, one of the main things we do while we're sitting there with a wandering mind. We're coming back. We're noticing, oh, a car drove by. I wonder, is that a truck or, distraction, coming and going. Both the sound, if we didn't attach to the sound of the truck, then the sound would have arisen and passed away. But then we attached a thought to that sound, or a belief or a judgment or something. And now it's not just the sound that has to come and go, it's that thought that will come and go, that belief, whatever it is. So when we're in meditation, that's what we're doing. We're noticing, I can observe these habits of my mind to create things constantly, like making something out of nothing. And we get some distance from that, and that's when we start to see kind of the deeper nature of things and how we're really, a lot of us are on that hamster wheel a lot of the time. And it's kind of an opportunity to, if not get off the hamster wheel, observe the hamster wheel. It's almost like I don't know, I used to have hamsters when I was little. So I have a very clear visual in my mind. Now they make those huge ones for your cat or your dog or something. So however you picture it, it's sort of like, oh, look at me on the wheel. Look how fast I'm running. Where do I think I'm going? Isn't that interesting? With a kind of like a friendliness toward this observation of our habits, of continuing the same loops over and over and over again. We bring some compassion to that because that's human to do that. And just through that observing, it helps us to slow down and eventually get off the hamster wheel for periods of time. We usually end up back on, but we know we're back on. Now we're like, oh, look, I'm running. So that's what we're doing in meditation, so that a whole bunch of other qualities build in us. We start to realize inside on a cellular level that we are connected to things. The things I say and do ripple out. They do affect my life. And why would I not want to examine that, knowing that these 5 things are true, these 5 remembrances? So it can be really helpful also to just realize the ways in which our society sanitizes these things. Our culture, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, does not want us to know this stuff. That sounds like a little bit like conspiratorial. It is a little bit conspiratorial. I mean, for real. Because they make money off of us. If we think we can stay young and not get sick or die, then, you know, how that one ends. Even death. Death in the Western world is very, very sanitized. And this is one of my soapboxes, so I'll try not to stay on it for too long. But I just think that the ways we come into this life, our birth and our death, are 2 of the most highly disconnected things we do to our great detriment. We medicate everything to the 9s so that we don't feel anything. And we don't see anything, or we make the dead person try to like look as alive as possible so that we think they're just sleeping. And it's a profound loss that we don't see our beloved people in a natural state of death. Because it's such a reminder. First of all, it allows us to grieve more. And I don't know, just we can look at other cultures who do death right, who really like allow for the full expression of grief and community coming together and all of that. So real life is messy. And yet having this human life, just the chance to go through all of this is considered very auspicious. We're really lucky to be able to be here. And this is the Buddha talking. We may or may not feel that way on any given moment or day. But the reason a human life is so auspicious is because we have what it takes to notice these things. So on the other side of this card, I made these a long time ago. Let me see. It says, human beings are the only species known to comprehend that someday they will die. In the Buddhist tradition, the 5 remembrances are recited daily as a reminder that life is both precious and fleeting, that our actions matter, and to savor the time spent with those we love. So this thing about the only known species, and we're finding things out more and more, but we know we're going to die. And we know that life is fleeting. And we also have the ability, so in the Buddhist tradition, the auspicious part is that we are able to comprehend the Dharma. So the Dharma, translation of Dharma is kind of, it's the teachings, and it's also translated as the truth of how things are. So we're able to comprehend that with practice, and sometimes just through suffering. We can have these breakthroughs about what's really important and what really matters. And then we can plan and live accordingly. And so, yeah, we could kind of go into like the other forms of life that you may or may not want to come back as in your next life in the Buddhist tradition. But one of the suttas are full of real visual. They were oral teachings, so often have very visual stories. And the story on the auspicious, one of the stories on being a human being is that your chances of being born a human, you all know this one? Someone could probably tell it for me, are the same as if you were a turtle swimming in the ocean and you came up for breath and your head got stuck in a bucket that someone had tossed out there. I may get that just slightly wrong, but there's a bucket floating around in the ocean and you're a sea turtle. You come up for breath and your head comes up in the bucket. I don't know who thought of that, but it's really rare. And we're here to learn. We're here to comprehend. I mean, the other, thing that the Buddha said was that you should practice as if your head was on fire. Your life is short. And so it's like we have this chance to understand. And we should take it. We should take it. We should not wait for illness or death, which is sometimes how this works, right? Often it is when something that is like profoundly shaking happens. That's what causes us to say, oh my gosh, and I've been worried about my hair. Sometimes that's really what it takes. And the universe is not afraid to teach us a hard lesson, right? If we need it. So, all this stuff doesn't really matter. And so this was really coincidental that I posted on Facebook last night because I realized it's the 20th anniversary of the end of my breast cancer treatment. And I was kind of just, philosophizing about that a little bit. And I first wrote this talk like 15 years ago, like notes, various things from this talk. And one of the things that I felt was really important to share at that time, and I still feel is important to share, is this quote from a young woman. So I was 34, and she was just a couple years older than me. Her name was Lisa Prisco, and we were in the Young Survivors Coalition, which is a wonderful group for young women with breast cancer. And it was an online community, so I never actually met her in person. But she was sort of like, at like 40 years old, the matriarch of our group. And she had metastatic breast cancer. And when she decided to stop her treatments and go into hospice, she wrote this really moving thing that I'll read for you. I can usually get through it now. I could not in the beginning. She was just a very, very strong person. So she said she was reflecting back on her life and the gratitude for having lived. So she said, what I am at times is just sad. Sad like a little kid at Disney World. After the evening fireworks display and the park is closing and your parents tell you it's time to go. And I'm just not ready because it was the greatest day of my life. And I'm just not ready for it to be over. And that's kind of like what the Buddha was telling us. This is like the greatest opportunity. So don't squander it. So she's definitely one of the people I can still see her face that I think of. It's like, if Lisa were here, or, like how to take advantage of this time that I don't know why I was given this time. When so many people aren't. But it's after that experience that I started teaching, actually. I started teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction because I'd been a practitioner for a long time. And then realized that It's a wonderful class. I'm just curious how many people have taken that class. Anyone in here taken mindfulness-based stress reduction? It's a huge plug for that class, actually. But I really wanted to be, it's a totally secular mindfulness class. I wanted to be able to teach the Buddhist stuff because it had been so life-changing for me. And just kind of like the realization that what really matters and how we really can do this in this lifetime. If not full awakening, which is possible, it's happened to lots of people, even those glimpses of getting off the hamster wheel, feeling what it's like to be fully present with your own people and with your family and your pets. And I was in line at Cafe Amore this morning getting my tea. And it was just like, there was a lot of people run on Sunday mornings, apparently. There's a lot of sweaty people in Cafe Amore on Sunday mornings. And it was just so delightful. So there was like a woman in front of me in line, and she just got back from running, and she was so like alive and dripping with sweat. And I just thought, it just made me smile. It's like these really little things that you kind of become intimate with as a deep source of appreciation for. I was just deeply appreciative for her life. I didn't even see the front of her head. It was just like, oh, look at all these people in here, like so alive, and may they all be well. And it just is just a way to live and practice that is deeply fulfilling. And so I guess the moral of the story is to allow the simple things to bring you out of the trance, this trance of separation, that I am somehow separate from all other things, from other people, from the world, from the earth. It's just, it's not the big things that are most likely for you to be able to see this. It's the smallest things in some ways. It really is just walking out your front door and watching a bumblebee on a flower. Sounds really trite, but when's the last time you did that? Some of us do that regularly, I know. It's a group of us that stop and smell the roses. But if you haven't, it's really profoundly connecting. That in some way, that bee is pollinating the things that I eat. And, in some way, there really is this sense of connectedness. And yeah, just like the brevity of life really allows us to bring gratitude. That's kind of the takeaway of this, is how to practice gratitude no matter what's happening. Just sort of, think of Lisa at Disney World. A lot of us have been there for the fireworks at the end of the day. And it's like, oh, just, how can we bring that kind of gratitude to the mundane aspects of our lives? Even the housework, there's an aliveness in just taking care of our own needs, and certainly caring for other people and going out in nature. So just thinking of some ways to bring this sense of gratitude into your life, and remembering these 5 remembrances. So and I just got this one soaking wet. There are like maybe 10 of them over there, but I think I'll do a reprint of these and put them out so that you can grab them in future classes. So I want to end with a Mary Oliver poem, which I haven't brought any Mary Oliver into class in a while. And I actually want to read probably her most famous poem. That sometimes the most famous ones are like, oh, I've heard that one a million times. But in this one, it's the last sentence you hear all the time. This is The Summer Day. And so I'm going to read the whole thing. because it's really talks to what we're talking about today. So, Mary Oliver would just wander around in nature. That was like her full-time job, and then write poems about it. So the summer day, who made the world? Who made the swan, the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Right. Thank you. I think the grasshopper bit's the best part of that poem. But everyone loves, what are you going to do with your wild and precious life, right? But think of the grasshopper. Yeah, that's where it's at for me. All right, so time for questions or comments, observations, anything you'd like to share. You got your, Catherine's, we use a microphone so that our Zoom folks can hear us. And Zoomers, this is just another, we love to hear from you. And I'm also often not wearing my glasses. If everyone here could help me see if there's a yellow hand up on Zoom, usually your box shifts to the upper left-hand corner, and I can see that a little bit more easily. So if you use the raise hand function, we love to call on you. All right. So anyone? Yes.
So forgive me for not articulating this well, but this is something that I've struggled with lately. But when we're talking about the Five Remembrances and then kind of this, like how you brought in the gratitude practice, for me, what comes up is the concept of no self in Buddhism. And yet, to practice gratitude and to really be present, like, it seems like you really need to know yourself. And then with the no self concept, it's obviously like we are all connected beings. We are not just one self. But I guess what comes up for me is like, there's some detachment there that can kind of keep us from actually being fully present and practicing gratitude. So I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to that contradiction that I may just be perceiving, but it's something that comes up for me a lot, that like when we talk about no self, that there's sort of an inherent detachment that happens.
I think it's a great question. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that to practice gratitude, it's an embodied practice. Mm-hmm. So you really have to like feel from your heart, and it's a deeply embodied practice. And how do you do that if there's no self? Yeah. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
One of Buddhism's many contradictions.
Yeah. Well, the teachings on not self is a better way of saying it. Okay. Instead of no self, okay, is not self. So that teaching is really around dismantling this notion that I am separate from things, and that I am a stable, solid individual that's not changing. So, or that there's an inherent something that is me that is not changing. And that's what we're working with in that practice, which admittedly is a little esoteric for some folks. So a gratitude practice is, you can definitely hold both things as true at the same time. There's not a teaching that says we don't have this body and this mind and this heart. We actually really value that. These mindfulness of the body practices help us to actually live through this body using this human life. I mean, we have these minds and hearts and these bodies that allow us to interact with all things that we can experience in this kind of interconnected way of being. So a gratitude practice is one that is not attached to this self. It's happening through this self. So that's kind of how I would explain it or experience it. If we were to have gratitude for something and then attach to it, we would be kind of almost re-upping this sense of separate self. Well, I'll be grateful for my health as long as I have it for the rest of my life, because then we're automatically we are a hair's breadth away from separating out. But a really embodied gratitude practice acknowledges that this is not going to last, and that there's something kind of living through me that experiences this, but it's not this body, and it's not this separate. I'm not safer separated out. I don't know. That could be a whole.
No, that was very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was like, well, don't get me started. I tangent sometimes.
No, that was great. Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah. Others. Yeah.
Part of the poem I like is the wandering in the fields. And as you pointed out, that's not highly respected in our society. Nobody makes money on that, and a waste of time. And I do feel like sometimes being a Buddhist in this society is swimming upstream. I read the newspaper this morning and had some very un-Buddhist thoughts about some of the things going on out there. Any words of wisdom on that swimming upstream? I mean, I can see it as an opportunity to reflect, but that's not always the most, that bit of perspective isn't always entirely helpful.
Yeah. It is. It's kind of wild to not just be a Buddhist, because what does that really mean? I mean, like, we're all practicing in different ways. There are teachings that, I shouldn't say what does that mean. There are specific practices that we engage in that definitely would define that. But there are lots of non-Buddhists out there doing the same thing in their own way, trying not to add harm to the harm that's already being practiced. I think, it definitely feels like swimming upstream. To have glimpses of clear seeing about, oh, look at everything going to hell in a handbasket. Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? That it doesn't really feel like it meets the times to have that kind of Buddhist type of acknowledgement that, of course, this is what's happening. And I think I even said that last week when I was teaching. Would we expect it to be any different? If knowing what we know about causes and conditions leading to actions, how do we do both at the same time? Like, observe what's happening, knowing that this is a natural outgrowth of really gross misunderstanding of many people about how the world works, and of power and all of that stuff. I could get on another tangent. I won't. And how do we engage in that world to help ease the suffering that we're seeing? That's where most Buddhists really struggle, because it's like, that's not helping. Don't you see that's not helping? No, people don't see that it's not helping. And it's not possible if we were to go around trying to walk up to everyone we think is, causing harm and shake them and say, don't you understand? That's causing more harm, right? That's not going to work. And so that's not a skillful practice. So how do we balance this observation that, yeah, there is a trajectory to the things that are happening in the world, in the country, and sometimes even in our own family. Certainly with people, we'll say, oh, I see your suffering because I see myself. I'm not separate from you and judging that you're wrong and I'm right. It's like, oh, I just see this is causing suffering. We play that out. That's our instruction for ourselves too, when we're at these choice points, which we're at a lot of the time. Come back to my actions are the ground on which I stand. So are the actions I'm about to take, or my thoughts that lead to those actions, are they going to be polluting the system or cleaning it up? According to what I know in this moment. And again, there's not self-righteousness. Watch the self-righteousness. That's like a neon, We all do it because that's just kind of part of our human experience, is kind of knowing we're right. But it can be a signal, because when we're self-righteous, we're separating ourselves. So can we let that go? And I think this is what your question is about, how to be a Buddhist in the world. And sometimes we do have not very Buddhist thoughts. All of us do. Do we act on them? Is the way more important question. So our thoughts and impulses that arise are just, part of the human condition. But this practice allows us to pause and notice, oh, there's that thought again, or I'm about to do something really unskillful. It might feel really good, but I can tell it's not going to lead to less suffering. And that's the practice. So,
How
yeah,
do we
it doesn't
do
mean
that?
we don't do anything. Holly, yes.
So how do we do that? Like, how do we know what will be skillful to ease the suffering that we see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's helpful. Can you think of a specific situation? Like a really specific, I know it's all going to hell in a handbasket, but can you think of a really specific situation?
No, but I guess you're right. It's situation specific, and each situation will necessarily be different, and then will dictate what is skillful or not. That's what you're trying to say?
Yeah. And I'm trying to think too as we're going through this. So one of the things that really just riles me is the lying. The lying. Like, the truthfulness is a huge part of this practice. And I'm still shocked at the lying that's taking place. And so I can't control what the government people do and tell the truth about or not. And I guess politics is full of lying and always kind of has been. But lying for selfish gain, it's like the malicious lying that I can't wrap my head around. And I can't stop it, except through voting or whatever. So the way I practice with that is trying not to lie myself. It's the only thing I can do. And that's not always easy. I mean, if you really were to shine a light on your own practice of truthfulness and truth telling, there's a lot of work that could be done. for most of us, like radical truth telling. And also looking at the causes of lying like that, and trying to alleviate the causes of that in my own family. Like we talk about that all the time. Like, this is how I would skillfully address lying, something I could be very un-Buddhist about if I were to just try to, get on social media like I do sometimes. Like, why is everyone lying? That's not helpful. But to realize that people lie out of fear of loss of power and control, fear of punishment, right? There are some, if you have children, you've probably explored this already. Why are they lying when it's very clear they wrote their own name on the wall? Why would they lie about that? Sometimes it's that blatant, right? It really is that blatant. And to try to alleviate the causes of fear and all of those things that cause lying in our own very small circle. So yeah, it is kind of like specific. And if it's something you feel like you just have no impact on, then bring it really close in and then vote, right? And that is for many of us, our one impact. Get engaged if you're a person that gets engaged for whatever you think is right. Yeah. Is that helpful, Holly? Sorry. That was.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the frustration of, I was really zen about this at the change of the administration. It's like, yeah, just, do what you can in your life where you are. And now I'm like, I can't do anything to change, the suffering in our country, in our communities, in Gaza, anywhere. And just that impotence is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, no question. Aside from, especially when we're far removed from something geographically, what can we do? I don't know. We can take little steps. We can, donate our money to the causes that it feels kind of empowering sometimes. I don't know. I reallocated all of my donations in January, just changed it all around. And it felt like something little, it's not a ton, but it's something that I can do. Yeah. And you might be surprised that there are ways to have a wider reach. Yeah, why don't I plug the Buddhist Coalition for Democracy? Yeah, I think I'll do that. So, one of the things that IMCW, which is our home organization, will be doing this year and this fall actually is partnering with the Buddhist Coalition for Democracy. And Catherine is a new board member there. We're going to host an online thing with Tara's going to speak, Tara Brock's going to speak, and a few other like well-known Buddhist teachers. And there'll be like a grassroots kind of organizer, a legal person, to just where people can come together. It's 90 minutes or so and just be together and try to understand what is the Buddhist piece about addressing. So how do we address suffering? So Holly, tune in because they'll be speaking exactly kind of to your question, and when with some practical things we can be doing. And fundamentally, really important to say this is not political. We're a religious nonprofit. We do not advocate for candidates, for or against candidates. We are speaking to suffering and morality, which is right in our wheelhouse, like how to live a life that causes less suffering, the things we can do. It's really not meant to be commentary on individual people. So anyway, that's something that's coming up, and we'll definitely give you more information as that takes shape. In the back.
I'm so glad to kind of.
Oh, sorry, I can't see. Oh, thank you. Hey there.
I just wanted to comment on what you were just saying, maybe a little different of a perspective, because I'm 22, so I'm just coming up in this this world, this political climate, this economic climate, and I have a lot of fortune and opportunity because I have a large family abroad in Ghana. And during this new administration change, I was over there having time with family and experiencing another way of living, another peoples and how they moved and how and their problems that they were facing. They had a president in Ghana who wasn't doing good for the country, overstayed his welcome, and then a better president came in. As in our country right now, some people may believe that a worse president has come in. So when I had come back here and trying to see my friends were suffering. A lot of my friends who graduated from college who are looking to get government jobs no longer have that opportunity. And just a suffering within my own friend circles and what my role and how I could help was. And one thing that I would remind my friends, a lot of my friends are people of dual citizenship. I'm like, now if you're experiencing fear, if you're experiencing worry, and rightfully so, it is a very scary time. I no longer go into DC as I used to. Explore that other avenue that you've been so graciously given. You have two homes. You have a family abroad with a whole nother situation. The world is so it's so vast and big, and the problems that we face here, even though America runs the world, some may say with our global policies and whatnot. It really, I wasn't, when I was living in Ghana for 8 months, I would check in on U.S. politics and chuckle a little bit because it wasn't my reality. I was in a much calmer environment, a much safer environment. And at my young age, knowing that that's out there in a time when we're all very stressed and we don't know what to do or what we should do. Yeah, and in regards to like what I think that we all should remember is in trying to figure out what we should be doing right now is just to listen to your heart. Um, I have found that whenever I'm truly trying to discern something in my life or figure something out that I really can't, when I meditate and I ask my heart, what do you want, like my truer self, opposed to everything that I may selfishly want. What should I do to bring joy in my own self through my heart?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sorry, I wasn't holding it that close again. Sorry.
It's okay. That's okay. No, thank you so much for that perspective. Lots of wisdom in that from a few different angles. Just first, that kind of highlighting that everyone's experience is not the same.
So they can hear you.
Oh, I've got my own.
Oh.
You can hand it to that guy. Yeah. Thank you, though. And also how to step out of our bubble. That this situation is going to pass. And we are far from the only country that's ever gone through this kind of mishigas. This is really normal for human beings to try to grab power and do ill things with it. This is nothing new in the long scheme of the human condition, and this will pass. And suffering is an inherent part of being human in this life. And then, like the final piece that you shared about asking yourself in those moments where it's like, what can I do? It's sometimes we think with our minds, we really try to engage those wheels turning, like, what can I do? Let's think about this. And we talk a lot here about honing your inner compass so that you as an individual know what's the next right thing to do in any given moment. Because there's not a right answer. You can't find it through thinking. This is what this body is for. Again, like coming back to this feeling body it will tell you if you ask and then listen and listen from the neck down. What is called for in this moment? Is it action? Is it to do nothing? Sometimes doing nothing is the skillful response, often, actually, or waiting until the wisdom emerges in any given situation, pausing, not feeling like we kind of have to be like frantically doing, fixing. So thank you for sharing that way of tuning into the heart. Yeah. We did.
I'll keep it brief, but this comes after we've talked a little bit in class before about skillful reactions to things or skillful thoughts about things that happen. And I don't mean this to be controversial at all, but whether it's politics that are polarized or something simple that happens, like we're not driving quite as fast as the guy behind us wants to drive. He gets around us and, gives us a nice sign out the window. The recognition that that person may be suffering and having a bad day is skillful, right? And the same thing could be true for politics. So when and now the with both of those examples, the other person, the other side, whatever you want to call it, may not be going about things the right way, may be going about things in a very unskillful way, but that doesn't mean everything is hunky-dory with them. It doesn't mean that they're not suffering. So I think, and I have not been that active, but should I become active in the political climate, I would want to do so I should do so in a way that skillfully considers what's the root cause that the other side is ramping up to, admittedly be unskillful about, but what are their issues, and how how can I approach those, or how can I be active and support mechanisms that even maybe help in that suffering, let alone the suffering they're causing. So anyway, that was my only thought.
Yeah, no, not controversial at all. I wholeheartedly agree. And to just kind of to look at our wording too, there is no other side. It can be practical to think that way, especially the way we kind of put people in groups in this country, but just do away with that, right? It's individual human beings, just like we are, like these expressions of the whole. They're like, we're all just like waves in the same ocean. So of course we can understand what it's like for another person if we want to, and we have to. It's really the only way through. That we don't create more separation is to understand the conditions that lead to what we're seeing, no matter what it is, whether it's the guy in the car or, the situation in the world or the country. And it's a little bit like what we were talking about earlier with let's go upstream. That's where we're much more effective as individuals in trying to alleviate the causes of suffering so that people don't have to act in ways that cause harm. And it's just, I'm going to end with saying it's really important that we don't ever think we know the answer for other people. Okay, that's not what we're doing. That's going to send us into self-righteousness, like a savior mentality for all these people who don't know anything. It's highly, from my experience, individual. It's like, I see that this is happening. Can I know what the causes are? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Doesn't really, these are like communal issues. This is like, there's the karma of the individual, and then there's the karma of the wider situation. And can we try to alleviate that as best we're able, even if it's on the smallest scale? I don't know, the people that you come into contact with. I look at teaching is, I don't have a lot of time to do lots of other things, but I do this. I try to create a space for people to share and let's talk about it. Like, that's what I love saying. Oh, I had a not very Buddhist thought the other day. Great. So did everybody else. How do we come together so we can talk about that very human thing? And then maybe how to not act on our less skillful impulses. This community is a great way to do that. And I'm happy to see it continue to kind of flourish, that we have these spaces that are kind of safe to talk about these things. So, all right. Lots of appreciation for your presence with us and your participation. Yeah. Summer's almost over. I know. All right. We'll see you next time. Pretty soon, we're going to be starting our new fall year. I have beginner's energy in September, so look out. Okay. All right, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye.